What's going on, everyone? This is Mitch with SC Weather. Hope y'all been having a great Wednesday. There's actually some stuff to talk about now, as it looks like some consistency is starting to show up in some models for a potential winter weather event, maybe for the Mid-Atlantic, even areas of North Carolina, potentially South Carolina. You know, there's no details right now, but we're going to talk about what the models are showing because they're starting to get, I wouldn't call it a trend yet. If we can get one more day of consistent trends showing a winter weather in portions of the upper southeast, mid-Atlantic, then we really can start to talk about this and place it in the area of pattern recognition here. So there's still two storms we're going to talk about, and that first storm is very important for our second storm for areas in the south that get winter weather. So we're going to break that down, what we know now, show you what the models are showing. If you haven't subscribed, guys, it's an awesome way to support me. Y'all have been phenomenal for the last month or so. I've had major growth, so thank y'all for all of it. I talk weather here on the East Coast. I started off talking weather mainly about South Carolina, but has spread out my area of where I talk to the East Coast. So if y'all hear my kids in the background, sorry about that. I got two little girls and they're just playing around the house. So if y'all hear the kids, sorry about that. So, but let's get deep into this video here. So we're going to start off by the GFS, and there's the big daddy run right there. But we're going to back it up. We're not going to start off like that. So we're getting to this weekend. Well, there's going to be some rain across the southeast. The system that's going to cause dreary conditions, rainy conditions, probably for the next couple days, Thursday and Friday. But that's not really what we're going to talk about in this video. In this video, here comes the first storm. The GFS is not really impressed with this first storm. The Euro has something totally different, but this is going to be a rainmaker for us here in the southeast. Potential for a big-time snow event in the northeast and upper mid-Atlantic area is still still up in the air for that area, New York City, Boston, and I'm going to show you why, especially New York City down to Washington, D.C. We're going to watch out. This storm is going to be an important player for our storm coming up potentially later in the week. Like I said, this is all for next week, and not this week, next week. Two storm threats. One storm threat that could deliver wintry weather for areas that don't normally see it, like North Carolina. I know areas in South Carolina don't want to hear that. You know, us in South Carolina, we get sick and tired of hearing people from North Carolina getting winter weather. But I know you guys don't get to see it a lot either in North Carolina, so we're definitely going to talk about that here. So that storm moves out. Does that storm deliver some kind of snowpack here? Because we'll need a snowpack up to the north for this next system, and I'll tell you why. But here comes the next system. Low pressure developing. It's been trending north on each GFS run. You got a decent amount of cold air here, but it's not really the cold air that's right here that's going to be a factor with the storm. As we get through in here, you get the low pressure transfers over here, and you got a classic cold air damming setup. Cold air damming is cold air that gets trapped east of the mountains. We call it the wedge, a backdoor cold front. Basically, you got a decent, sometimes a lot of cold air, sometimes just marginal cold air just east of the mountains. And check it out. You got a moisture, you got a low pressure here. You have some very heavy rain in southern areas of the southeast, South Carolina, southern Georgia, and you have ice and sleet and snow, a wintry mix breaking out in North Carolina. If you want to know where we're at, we're talking about literally a week from today. If this storm was to happen, it would be moving in right now, pretty much. So if this was to happen, it's still 174 hours out, which is a week out. So this will be overnight next Wednesday into Thursday. But if you look here, we get into the next frame as we get an overnight, like I said, Wednesday into next Thursday. You have a good bit of cold air here, and it's just an all-out snowstorm in portions of North Carolina, an icing event for areas even in upstate. You back it up here. It starts out as a good ice event for areas in the upstate of South Carolina. It moves to snow. The low pressure still stays far enough here where most of the precipitation doesn't ride up here. So this isn't going to be something that kind of gets going and turns into a full-on nor'eastern if we're taking the GFS serious right now. This is going to be something that really begins to strengthen and even can deliver heavy snow all the way to the coast of North Carolina. And even portions of the PD of South Carolina is showing snow. Guys, I'm going to say this 100 times as we're talking about this storm over the next couple of days. When I speak on a storm, I'm not speaking on it literally like it's going to happen. This is what models are showing, and what we're looking for is consistent trends in the models. Can this storm keep showing up? That's what you call a trend. It has to keep showing up. But this is a major winter storm for the Carolinas in the mid-Atlantic. Comes awfully close to Washington, D.C., Virginia. Now, why I was talking about that first storm was so important, because if that first storm can lay a snowpack, with cold air damming, you need some kind of high pressure up here. And if you don't have a strong high pressure, you need some seasonal snowpack up here to enhance cold airflow northeast down here in the CAD areas. So you need snowpack up here to enhance the cold air. So we're going to look at the basically the GFS snowfall totals. And granted, it's not accounting for ice either. But as we get into time, we get into next week, and here comes that storm. Now, that first storm doesn't deliver much for the Northeast. There's not much of a snowpack, but here comes our storm. Look at it. It's showing, let's just say it this, we're showing snow, wintry precipitation accumulation down here. I know you see this way down South Carolina thinking, that if you look at this graph here, that's a couple inches of snow in South Carolina. That's not what that means. The GFS is being really sensitive to what it thinks is winter weather, but it probably isn't. But this area in eastern North Carolina, that is serious, because what happens is that low pressure strengthens, throws heavier precipitation back into cold air in eastern North Carolina, and it turns out to a good old coastal low, Miller B to a coastal low kind of event. Now we look at now your next question is the European kind of showing the same thing as the GFS? Because a lot of times the GFS is on its own island. As we move through time, we're going to get straight to the storm. What I want to show you with the GFS is the first storm. Look at this. This is much more robust. There is much heavier winter precipitation. Sure, it's not deep into Virginia or North Carolina, but you have a decent winter storm that doesn't really get torn apart like the GFS shows. It ends up still being a moderate snowfall event for Boston. But what this can help do is put more of a snowpack up here. In Pennsylvania, it's ideal that you get a snowpack at least down into Pennsylvania to enhance and really affect a cold air damming event here. And as it gets going here, you get that storm out here, and it does show the second storm. Now, it's not as impressive as the GFS, but let me tell you, it still has basically the beginning of the storm starting off as a good thumping of snow for a large portion of North Carolina, and it's cold air damming again. You see the 32-degree line. It's going to be hard to see on your video, but as you can tell, there's ice, there's snow. So this is still a major, now this is more of a major winter storm for places like Boston, but this is still a big-time event for North Carolina. And with cold air damming events, if you know a little bit about weather, cold air damming tends to trend colder. Models can't pick up on how significant it is until a day before the system hits. So if we can keep this threat here, this might end up being more of a winter weather threat for places south than what the models are showing now. We just don't know them details. That gets moving out, and that turns into a pretty strong system, starts blowing up, but as it's moving off the coast. So we kind of look at the snowfall accumulations off the operational European model. And like I said, this isn't all snow. Some of this ice, especially in North Carolina, but there's a solid signal in the mid-Atlantic, southern areas of the Northeast, even into North Carolina. This is a pretty solid signal here. Now what this is this is the GFS ensembles. I've showed this multiple times. So this is the first model I showed, but the ensemble run. It shows the signal even down into South Carolina. This is it's not significant, no, but you can tell that this is a cold air damming signal because the way it dips southwest like this from the northeast. You don't see any signal in Alabama. You don't see any signal in Mississippi because this is just not this kind of setup of a storm. We look at the European ensembles, it's the same kind of look. You have a signal, it's not as strong, but there's a big time signal for you guys in Washington, D.C., New York City, and Pennsylvania for a winter storm. So even if the northern southeast doesn't get hit, this is going to be a wintry week, I think, for areas of the East Coast. And we've been talking about this what seems like a week. The last week has potential for the entire East Coast. And we're going to see if we can get a more southern solution, too, for one of these storms. This is a closer up look of the European ensembles, but you see the look even down to North Carolina. There's a signal for winter weather, even though it's a week out. This goes all the way through the February 1st. So what I want to show you here is you see the dip. This is the high pressure I guess we're going to be working with. We don't know. It's pretty far out. That is not ideal. I'll tell you that right now. To get a classic cold air damming event, where you get winter weather all the way down into northeast Georgia, most of the state of South Carolina. You need some kind of high pressure sitting right over the northeast and it being pretty strong. It doesn't have to be super strong, but the position for me is more important than the strength of the high pressure. So you notice this red area? Well, that's cold air damming. That's symbolizing the cold air basically off the high pressure. And you look here, look at the trends. This is the model before. This is the model before that. This is the model before that. So I feel like we're trending more towards a storm. Check out the low pressure. The low pressure. Now, one thing about the low pressure is it can keep trending north, and all of a sudden we're in a cutter, and the low pressure's up here, and we're stuck in a cold rain, or just rain. That could happen. So that is something to look at. There is so much time for this low pressure to trend north, trend back south, sit in the same area. So interesting times ahead for sure, guys, and we're going to try to figure out what this is going to do. Thank y'all for tuning in. Looks like we finally have something to talk about for right now. It's been a pretty boring stretch for about a week, but I'll keep y'all up to date, and thank y'all for tuning in. Y'all have a great night.